This is Margaret from the blog Don't Call It Bollywood. I haven't done a video in a while, but I wanted to do a video because I'm really excited to talk about the Bahubali Chinese box office numbers. The thing about Bahubali in China is it's not doing well, which is really remarkable because this is a film that did well everywhere in India, north, south, east, west, everywhere. And it did well in Japan, and it did well in America. It did well everywhere it has gone up until now, like record-breaking well. It was the top 3 movie in America the week it released, which stunned all American commentators on film. It's always done well, but not in China. Not only is it not doing well in China, it's not doing well in China after a whole string of other Indian films have done very, very, very well. Bajrangi Bhaijaan, Secret Superstar, Dangal. All of these movies have done extremely well in China. Based on the Chinese official box office figures, which are a little bit shaky and fuzzy, but also based on the fact that a friend of mine who's from China had parents who came to America and said, oh, hey, there's this movie everybody's talking about in China that has like a wrestler. They didn't know she was friends with somebody who was into Indian movies. They didn't have any connection with that. It's just the movie everyone's talking about in China. So yes, Indian movies are doing very well in China. Now, previously when I've looked at this, what I've said is I think Indian movies are doing well in China because they have similar cultures. So a story like Dangal about people who live in a village, who cook chicken by buying a live chicken and then killing it and then cooking it, that kind of life setting is more familiar in China than it probably is in America. And in the same way, American movies that are coming to China that are about, you know, people living in large cities and living together before marriage and having fabulous 5-room apartments and all of this stuff is probably less relatable for the Chinese market than an Indian film might be. There is a lot of similarities between the two cultures. So it makes sense that movies that are based on social issues like Dangal, like Secret Superstar, and so on, will find common ground. Arranged marriages, village life, there's lots of things that will overlap between China and India. But Bahubali is too much of an overlap, I think. The thing is, China has done Bahubali. They have done it for decades, and they have done it very, very well. Just in the past few years, we had The Great Wall, which was produced out of China and all about, you know, epic battles on the Great Wall. Before that, there was, I want to say it was The Red Fort. It was like 2 movies that were 6 hours long in total. It was just this massive thing with every movie star ever in it. Hero, basically every Jet Li movie, the whole Once Upon a Time in China series. There's tons of movies made in Hong Kong or Taiwan or mainland China that deal with a sort of Bahubali kind of plot. The obvious hooks of Bahubali. On the surface, Bahubali is about amazing fantasy battles and these really exciting set pieces and this very simple sort of legendary story that a child could grasp. What makes it a truly great movie is what's going on underneath the surface. There's all of this talk about philosophy and dharma and what's right and what's wrong, and you can dig into it incredibly well. But if you're an audience in Japan or America, you're just going to see the surface, and that's going to be enough for you because it is an amazing surface. It's an amazing accomplishment. If you're an audience in India, you'll see the surface and you'll also appreciate the underpinnings of it. If you're an audience in China, you'll see the surface and go, well, I've seen this in my own movies already. And in their own movies, the underpinnings, which again are there in these same Chinese epics. It's this whole debate about what's right and what's best for society and so on and so forth, but based on familiar Chinese legends and Chinese histories and all of these things. So similar to Bahubali, the audience could go in and go, oh, I know what's going to happen to that character. Oh, this is similar to that other legend. I see what they did there, and can have long philosophical discussions related to it, which they can't do with Bahubali. So, to sum up, the reason I think Bahubali is doing poorly in China after doing well everywhere else is because it's both too Chinese and not Chinese enough. Too Chinese as in it has a very similar sort of loose plot structure and special effects sequences and look to it as many films that would be familiar to a Chinese audience. and not familiar enough in that it is based on essential philosophical questions that are from the Indian philosophical tradition, not the Chinese philosophical tradition, as the Chinese historic action epic films would have been. Anyway, that's what I think is happening. I find it fascinating, and I'm hoping it means we get more and more films like Bajrangi Bhaijaan and Secret Superstar, which are at a lower level because they do very well in China. Oh, one other thing that I find fascinating is while Hollywood is pursuing the Chinese market by going bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, this is proof that India needs to pursue the Chinese market by going smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. You can't get much smaller than Secret Superstar. It was like only a little over 2 hours long. It essentially only had 4 speaking parts. It was this incredibly tiny, specific human story. No romance. Songs were great, but it was just like one person singing, no big dance numbers, none of that, and it's making gobs of money. So, hopefully, Hindi Film is listening, and they're going to keep making more movies like Secret Superstar and smaller films like that for the Chinese market, and also keep making the big, epic, action-adventure, ambitious movies for the market of, well, everywhere else in the world. Anyway, that's how it looks to me this week. You can feel free to agree, to disagree. There's a related post on my blog linked right below. Hop on over there and leave a comment, and I'd love to talk with you. Thanks. Bye.